Hello, hello. Welcome to our When We All Vote community. It is an absolute honor and pleasure to be here with you all. First and foremost, I want to say a huge thank you to spending your day and your afternoon with us. We are so grateful that you're taking some time to figure out what is going on, and we've got a jam-packed agenda to talk it through today. My name is Beth Link. I am the executive director of When We All Vote, and I took this seat exactly a year ago today. So this is a special moment to reflect on the past year and what we all accomplished together, but really importantly, to get a handle on what is going on, what's the road ahead, and what is our role in shaping that road ahead. So I am so grateful to you all for joining us. As you'll see on the screen, one just housekeeping item that I want to make sure everyone is aware of is that When We All Vote is a C3 nonpartisan organization. So everything that you are going to hear is nonpartisan in nature. And we know voting is nonpartisan, it's non-controversial. And so we're going to have a great conversation tonight following those norms. You're going to hear from some really incredible speakers, and all of that content will remain nonpartisan. I just ask if you're asking questions in the chat or engaging with us any way throughout the evening, please keep in mind to keep your questions C3 appropriate, which just means to keep them nonpartisan as you ask us those questions. All right. So I just want to say on behalf of our staff, on our co-chairs, including our founder, the incredible Mrs. Michelle Obama. Welcome. Thank you for being a part of our When We All Vote community, and thank you for spending time with us today. I am so proud of the work that we do together. Over the last year, we registered voters, educated people across the country. We're on college campuses, high school campuses, did voter registration at the NBA Summer League, at music festivals, and rallied together in Atlanta. And it really made a difference. If you look on the screen, you will see some of the incredible impact that we had together. Over 300,000 Americans took a voter registration action with us last year. We reached more than 14 million voters through our direct voter contact. Because you shared, you posted, you amplified, and because of our When We All Vote ambassadors and co-chairs shared important voter education resources, 150 million social media impressions were driven. And we know that more than 85,000 people joined us for early voting parties at the polls to vote early and to celebrate while they did it. We know this work is important, but we also know and impressive, and we could not have done it without our volunteers, our My School Votes ambassadors, our community partners, everyone on this call. But we also know we've got work to do. We know that 90 million people didn't vote in the 2024 election. And it's on us to outreach and to educate and to engage and to mobilize as we work together to change culture around voting. And we're really excited to do that. So I first want to just say, and I'm not going to lie, I know this year has been a lot through, the seemingly endless challenges and onslaught of news. It's hard to stay focused, to stay clear-eyed, and to know kind of what's going on in the world. So we're excited to be able to demystify some of that for everyone tonight, and to talk through what on earth is going on. I will just say, before I turn it to our experts and our ambassadors, I just want to give you a little bit of a preview of what we've got going on at When We All Vote this year. And then I will turn it to some of our wonderful speakers. So on the next slide, you will see that this year is an election year, and it's an important one. Mrs. Obama reminds us all the time, every year is an election year, and it's on all of us to lean in and to get engaged. So we know that at least 45 states have elections in 2025 with more than 100,000 open seats. 5 states have statewide elections this year. That includes Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Virginia, and Georgia. And 40 states have local elections. If you're looking to find information about elections near you, reach out to your local board of elections to find out more information. Throughout the year, we are going to be amplifying information about local elections, about how to get engaged, and about dates and deadlines near you. And so we're going to ask you to help us amplify and to make sure that everyone in your community knows what's going on this year, knows how to lean in, and knows how to engage. So throughout the spring and summer, we know that state, local, primary elections will be taking place. Keep an eye out on what's happening in your own community. On July 27th, that'll be a big moment to remind everyone it's 100 days from Election Day. And if you haven't been paying attention yet to the local elections near you, this is the chance. And then mark your calendars for National Voter Registration Week of Action in late September. That will be a big moment as we make sure that everyone in our communities is registered to vote ahead of the Get Out the Vote season in October and November. The more detailed calendar also on the screen here just gives you a sense of some of the key moments that you'll see us amplifying on our When We All Vote social media platforms and in our community conversations with you. And we encourage you, our volunteers, our community, to elevate these moments and use these as opportunities to educate and engage your community. All right. I am so excited to be able to turn the call to one of our first speakers. Actually, before I do that, I'm going to give us a little bit of a steer on the agenda and the guideline of what you're going to hear today. So I was so excited. I jumped the gun for a moment. So tonight you are going to hear from those special guests and experts about what's happening around the country. We're going to discuss the current state of voting rights and why they matter. You are going to learn how to take action and how to make an impact. And then you'll have that opportunity to ask questions, to connect to those fellow change makers across the country. We have an incredible lineup for you. As you will see on this slide, you will shortly hear from the amazing Kamie Crawford. We've got Marsai Martin in the house. We've got Lynae Vanee in the house. We've got Amanda Hollowell, our Managing Director of National Organizing, who will be giving us those tangible actions to take. Janai Nelson, who is the President and Director-Counsel of the NAACP Legal Defense Fund, and Loni Love, our amazing When We All Vote ambassador, will all be sharing remarks and words with you tonight. All right. Stacked agenda, lots to go. Let's just jump into it. It is my absolute pleasure to turn the call over to our amazing When We All Vote ambassador, Kamie Crawford, who is a television host, an entertainer, and an amazing ambassador for voting and democracy. Thank you, Kamie, for joining us.
Thank you so much, Beth. And hi, everybody. I am Kamie Crawford. I became a When We All Vote ambassador last year because I wanted to stay engaged in our democracy. And I am so excited to be here tonight with all of you and with people who want to do the same. Before we dive in, we have to take a moment to shout out all of the volunteers, the high school students, and the partners who did the work last year. You registered and educated voters person to person, neighbor to neighbor, friend to friend, or bestie to bestie, as I like to say. So thank you so much for all of the hard work that you have put in. Now, let's get real. Okay, I know we are coming out of a very chaotic election cycle. If you are like me, you are and have been exhausted. Many of us are still processing the results. And you might feel overwhelmed by everything that you're reading in the news. I feel like we are constantly just inundated with news and real life experiences that are tiring. But I feel like we are at the place where we are ready and geared up to get back into it and see what else we can do. So if you're like me, you've been asking yourself, what can I do? And you are not alone. We are in this together. No matter what, there is one thing for sure. The power of the people is greater than the people who are in power. And we have to remember that. We have to stay engaged. Tonight, we are coming together as a community to figure out what is going on with our democracy and how we can take actions in our cities and our states. I need everyone to remember that every year is an election year. Okay. There are no small elections. Every election matters. And there are more than 100,000 seats up for election in 2025 alone. So that is 100,000 opportunities to get engaged, to make a difference. And I don't know about you, but that is enough to get me fired up. So I am excited to be here. I'm happy that you are here. And now I'm going to pass it on to our When We All Vote Executive Director, Beth Link, to keep this energy up and walk us through tonight's call. Thank you, everyone, for being here. And thank you for being in this work with me. Happy to be doing this together.
Thank you so much, Kamie, for joining us. Well, we're going to keep this energy going. Thank you for being such an amazing ambassador for us, but we've got some more, and we have some more ambassadors here joining us tonight. So next up, we're going to talk about what is going on. And joining us to talk about what's going on in the current state of play is our amazing ambassador, artist, entertainer, talented actress and producer, Marsai Martin, who was a first-time voter in this previous election and is going to share some words with us. And then following Marsai, we will hear from expert, parking lot pimpin', influencer, connoisseur, as well as just leader and artist and When We All Vote ambassador, Lynae Vanee, who will be joining us right after Marsai. So I will turn it to you, Marsai. Thank you so much for joining us.
Hey, y'all. Hope everybody is doing well this evening. Thank you, Beth, for the amazing introduction. And yeah, I'm Marsai Martin. And just like Beth just shared, I did cast my ballot for the very first time in a presidential election last year. And I could not be more proud to call myself a voter, and especially a When We All Vote ambassador. I mean, come on. But my generation is, to say the least, so used to unprecedented moments. And last year was no exception. But first-time voters showed up anyway. And we broke voter registration records in more than a dozen states. But our work isn't done. We need to keep showing up for each other because every year is an election year. Exactly what Beth said. And every open seat is a chance to change our future. Now, if you're a young change maker who's 18 years or older and, just ready to get to action, apply for the My School Votes Advisory Fellowship to keep breaking down youth voter registration and civic engagement records in our communities. And look, I would like to put together a hashtag voting squad, a hashtag voting squad to pull up to the polls with my friends and family like I did last year. Because listen, I'm bringing the same energy to 2025. Okay, nothing is going to stop us. Now, there's 3 things you can do: stay educated on voting rights and our democracy, and checking your voter registration, and staying in community with people. Just like how we are tonight. There's a lot going on, and it seems like there's always a new topic in the news. And I know we all just want the real story. So I'm passing it off to voting rights expert and When We All Vote ambassador, Lynae Vanee, for the info on what's going on.
I would not call myself an expert. I would just call myself a witness, trying to make sure that I am taking everything that I'm seeing and distilling it and making sure that the people can feel it and not feel overwhelmed. Thank you, team. Thank you to the We All Vote team for having me back. It was such an amazing opportunity to be able to host the rally last year to get everyone out to vote. And I just want to continue to echo that same sentiment. It is still impertinent. It's still pertinent that we get out to vote now more than ever, because now I think more than we have in past election seasons or years or whatever, we have the potential to see how our vote can actually change what's going on in real time. So at the beginning, we did share some of the things that were happening in 2025 as far as the special elections. Please get out and vote. We have seats in the House that we can flip. We have so many different opportunities to push back, whether it's giving your individual state a stronger stance as far as states' rights, and state representatives to push back in these big rooms, whatever. We need y'all out there. And I try my best not to be a part of the doom scrolling situation, but my role on the call tonight was to give you just a little bit of a summary of what's going on. We've got several things, and I honestly don't know. I don't even know where to begin after the mic madness. But what I will tell you is that immigrant rights are under attack, transgender rights are under attack, DEI is under attack, and with those things, there is such a trickle-down effect into our everyday life. I've known people personally have told me about emails that they're getting saying that their departments are either going to be diminished or layoffs are going to happen soon and very soon. I've gotten email. I've been shown emails of people in different. I hope I'm not snitching on anybody, but just so you can understand how pervasive it is, asking people to make sure that they report people who might be providing DEI services under a different name. You got different companies who are changing the way that they talk about DEI to either preserve it or completely eliminating their programs. So with all of that said, it doesn't stop at the presidential election, and it never has. I think in this past election season, we were all very aware of a potential threat, and I'm not saying that in any sort of partisan way. I actually get to work with a number of polling companies, and a lot of Americans are concerned about what's going on either side of the aisle. A lot of Americans don't feel that certain people should have a say in what's going on in our government, should have access to your information. So closing out, I just want to make sure that I gave a couple of sources that are trustworthy, because I know one of the things that we struggle with today is media literacy and also knowing what information to trust and not even allowing our own biases to color how we receive information. So I would definitely suggest you look into, whenever you hear something, whenever you see a headline, cross-check it with outlets like AP News or Vox or BBC or Al Jazeera or 19th. These are all also nonpartisan news networks that are just focused on telling you the truth. So with that said, just with everything going on, I also still like to just make sure you know that you are not helpless. I believe it was Kamie that said it in the beginning. We are more powerful. Beth, you said in the beginning. Somebody said in the beginning that we are more powerful as a voting body. And something that really carried my voter ambassadorship across the board last year was the desire to take back the social contract theory. When this country was founded, it was decided by the founding fathers that the people would give power to the government, and in return, the government would protect the people. And we still have a chance to harness that power. So if we're still in order, I think I'll be passing it to our managing director, Amanda Howell. So sorry about my mic, guys, but thank you so much for having me, and have a good night.
No worries. Thank you for being here and being present. I think one of the best things I saw in the chat, because you guys, I'm monitoring everything tonight, is someone said, as our ancestors would say, the devil is busy. But you know what? We are busier. So we got you on. You got to say your piece. And thank you so much for showing up. We always appreciate when our ambassadors take that time out their busy schedules to come and talk to our volunteers. Our volunteers are from all over the country. I see you guys in the chat. New York, California, Florida, Arizona. You guys are really representing tonight. And I just want to thank you so much to the close to 600 people who have decided to commit themselves to volunteering with When We All Vote and to hearing this important information. And tonight, we're going to get to those questions I saw in the chat about what are we going to do about the State Act? What are the voting rights access? What are we doing? We're going to hear from a professional. Her name is Janai Nelson. She is the president and Director-Counsel of the NAACP Legal Defense Fund, the nation's premier civil rights law organization fighting for racial justice and equality. Nelson has served as Associate Director of Counsel and as a member of the LDF's litigation and policy team. She also has served as interim director for the LDF's Thurgood Marshall Institute in various other leadership capacities at LDF. And let me tell you, she's a renowned scholar on voting rights and election law. She continues to produce cutting-edge scholarship on domestic and comparative election law, race, and democracy theory. She is going to give us all the goods we need. And then after her, we're going to hear from our ambassador, Loni Love, who is a two-time Emmy and NAACP Image Award winner, entertainer, author, and activist. She also holds a BS in electrical engineering from Prairie View A&M. Okay, HBCU. But before we get started, again, I'm just so excited. Keep posting your questions in the chat. we will get to them at the end of this call. Please make sure we're all being great and nice to each other in the chat as well. You guys are going to get some great information, and I will now give the stage over to Ms. Nelson.
Thank you so much, Amanda. It is wonderful to be in this room, this virtual room with all of you tonight. It feels really good, especially after the year we had last year and, of course, the beginning of this year. As Amanda said, my name is Janai Nelson. I am the president and Director-Counsel of the Legal Defense Fund, the nation's premier legal organization fighting for racial justice, which includes, of course, the fundamental right to vote. I want to send a huge shout out to everyone at When We All Vote, including your amazing ambassadors for putting on tonight's community call so we can discuss a few of the questions that have been gnawing at so many of us who care very deeply about the future of our multiracial democracy. We want to know what's going on. We want to know, most importantly, what is being done to protect every voter's ability to have their voices heard. And right now, I know some of you may be questioning the true power of your vote given the current circumstances. Others of you may appreciate that it is the fear of that very power that causes opponents of equality to try to silence us. But either way, no matter where you come out, we all know that we are facing what feels like an endless array of threats and rollbacks at a time when so many of us were already deeply dissatisfied with the status quo, and we're already fighting for change. But to understand why the backlash has been so fierce, we need to recognize and appreciate the undeniable progress we have made. Because in a lot of ways, the pushback we're facing is a reaction to all that we have collectively done to move this country forward. So let's just take, for example, the 2024 general elections, the year of the super elections, because people around the globe were voting in record numbers last year. So there were millions of voters in the US, especially young voters, like many of you, who were deeply engaged in efforts to not only have their voices heard, but to ensure that they brought their friends and their peers and, like Kamie said, your BFFs, your family members along with you all to vote. And for the first time in history, voters in the state of Alabama, the state of Louisiana, elected the candidate of their choice in 2 new opportunity districts that LDF helped to create through strategic litigation. So voters showed up, they showed out, and they got what they wanted. Their votes counted, and they produced a result. In 7 states, voters enshrined reproductive rights in their state constitutions. And on top of that, right now, 2 Black women, Angela Also Brooks and Lisa Blunt Rochester, are serving as United States senators at the same time, which is the first time that has ever happened in the Senate's history. And because of the engagement and enthusiasm and interest of organizations like LDF and When We All Vote, because we work to help support and amplify all of the energy you all brought to the elections, you're all on this call tonight. You're still ready to learn. You want to strategize. You want to realize your full power to stand up for what you believe in. And most importantly, in this moment, to build the future that you want for yourselves and for this country. So while there may not be a presidential election this year, there are plenty of opportunities for you to get involved in your communities. And you heard about some of them earlier. There are opportunities to demand more of our democracy, to participate in local elections, from perhaps your governor to your mayor, to your city council member, to your sheriff, to your tax collector. Those all matter. And in fact, local elections are just as important and sometimes even more important to your day-to-day life than the big races that come up every 4 years. So much of what happens in our daily lives is impacted by who we elevate to positions of power where we live, not just those in Washington, where we live. And there are thousands of opportunities for you to vote for people across the country. And because turnout is often so low in these local elections and these state elections, if you turn out, your voice is that much more powerful. So we can't ignore these election opportunities because that may be where we can make all the difference. your vote could truly be the difference between progress and further retrenchment of our rights. But as we saw during the last elections in November, there are numerous hurdles for voters in many states that they must clear in order to make their way to the voting booth. And there are efforts right now to make it even harder for all of us to vote. There's a bill before Congress that some of you may have already heard of. It's called the SAVE Act, which sounds nice and innocent, but it's not. The SAVE Act would force people to show their birth certificate or passport in person when registering to vote, which is an onerous and unnecessary requirement, given that being a citizen is already a prerequisite for voting. So you can't really register and be on the voting rolls if you aren't already a citizen. So having this double proof is just a way to keep us from the polls. And many of us don't have a birth certificate or a passport. And even if we do, it may not be readily available. So this could potentially disenfranchise millions of people, including college students, people of color, married people who changed their name, transgender people who may have changed their names. It requires this passport or birth certificate before even registering, which could also have a disproportionate impact on Black people because only a third of us have valid passports. It would eventually eliminate voter registration drives because people would still have to go in person to election offices to show their birth certificate or their passport to get their application processed. So you can see all of the impediments that the SAVE Act would erect. So I'm going to urge you to call your senator and tell them to vote a hard no on the SAVE Act. The number to the U.S. Senate, which we should all have on speed dial in this moment, is 202-224-3121. And you can call your senator anytime about any issue that you hear about in the news, that you care about, and that you want to weigh in on. So if you find yourself responding to something on your social media choice, you can also then go and tell that same thing to your senator so that it can be registered with someone who might be able to change it. And if you call that number and you don't know your representative, they can put you through to the person who does represent you. So despite that very real threat to our right to vote on the ballot, I am still incredibly hopeful. I'm hopeful for one, because even amid the efforts to make voting more difficult with bills like the SAVE Act, there is movement in many states to expand access to the ballot through state voting acts that can stop voter suppression, that eliminate discriminatory election systems, that undermine Black and Brown voters' ability to elect their preferred candidates of choice. And these acts can even prevent discrimination before it happens. Many state Voting Rights Act laws or proposals include provisions to provide information in multiple languages, and it helps make election rules clearer for voters. There are already 7 states, California, Washington, Oregon, Virginia, New York, Connecticut, and Minnesota, that have enacted State Voting Rights Act. And there is momentum in several other states, including right now, Maryland and New Jersey, to make those Voting Rights Acts law in those states as well. I'm also hopeful because I know that those of us at LDF and When We All Vote will put everything on the line again to defend our rights and disrupt efforts to take them away. At LDF, our Black Voters on the Rise team is engaged in year-round advocacy to ensure access to the ballot in the South, where attacks to voting have been the most egregious. But what gives me the most hope is knowing that we, the majority of people in this country who want to advance a multiracial democracy, have so much untapped power that is so much broader than just showing up to the polls every 4 years. We need to do it every year. We need to hold our elected officials accountable because voting is only the first step. It's just the entry point. It's the gateway to greater power. Voting itself is not sufficient. We must do more. We have to make this democracy work for us. We have to make democracy deliver. And we can do that by holding our elected officials accountable, by demanding that they carry out their will for all of their constituents, whether you voted for them or not just the will of a loud and engaged extremist minority. As a country, we have faced what seems like intractable problems before, like slavery, and segregation and Jim Crow and no voting rights for women or Black people, no same-sex marriage. And yet we progressed, we disrupted, we dared to dream bigger, and we won. So my call to each and every one of you is to summon and keep that same energy, keep fighting and pushing and speaking up loudly. There is a quote from a wise man named Thurgood Marshall, who happened to be the founder of the Legal Defense Fund, when he said, freedom by definition is people realizing they are their own leaders. The fate of our democracy and your future rests upon our collective shoulders. If we do not like our so-called leaders, we must become our own. We have the tools not only to meet this moment, but to refound and reshape our democracy for a future of dignity, opportunity, and freedom that we all deserve. So thank you for being here tonight. It was wonderful to be in conversation with everyone. And now I'll turn it over to Loni Love.
Oh, I hope my lace front is on straight. Hey, everybody, it's Loni, and I'm a proud When We All Vote ambassador. Look, all jokes aside, there's a lot going on right now. Thank you, Janai, for walking us through and giving us the latest on the voting rights. I mean, a lot is changing at the national level, but one thing stays the same, y'all. Voting rights protect every other right. You cannot deny that. We can't make our voices heard on the issues that matter most if we can't make our voices heard at the ballot box. Come on now. We can't demand more from our leaders or make change in our communities if our elected officials aren't held accountable to us. See, democracy is for everybody, not just some. Everybody. That includes you. You are important. So as we get ready to learn more about the state of our voting rights today, I want to remind people, no one gave us our voting rights. People have been working hard. Study history. Happy Black History Month, by the way. We've been fighting all of our lives, all of our lifetimes, before we was even born, and we're going to keep on fighting. The voter suppression that we're experiencing today isn't a coincidence. People wouldn't be trying so hard to place limits on our votes if they didn't know just how powerful our voices and votes are. But the tactics, they not new, okay? Neither is the way we fight back. You know how we fight back? Together. And even though it feels like we just voted, I know. There are more than 100,000 local elections happening in 2025, y'all. So I need you to double check your voter registration. And when we all vote /check, make sure you check your mamas and have your cousins check theirs too. Because I know the When We All Vote community is ready to keep doing this work in 2025 and beyond. Now, I'm going to turn it back over to Amanda. Thank y'all for listening and for being a part of this, because action and spirit is going to keep us and keep democracy alive. So thank y'all. Take it away, Amanda.
Thanks so much, Loni, Janai. You guys got some great information tonight. How are we going to defend against the SAVE Act? What's happening on the local level? And then Loni just came through and reminded you about your power. And that is a great segue into what is coming up and what we're celebrating at When We All Vote. It is going to be the 60th anniversary of the Voting Rights Act. And as we know, on March 7th in Selma, Alabama, there's a march on Selma. And so we really want folks to dig in this year and use tools and really learn this important history and really ground yourself in this moment. Bloody Sunday was a violent attack on civil rights. Those marchers in Selma, Alabama, risked their lives for what? For our voting rights, for our civil rights. This was not given to us. That event galvanized the moment, and the Voting Rights Act of 1965 was produced. We're working with Array and Ava DuVernay with this iconic film, and they've also created this amazing learning companion. It's going to highlight some great guidance for you, some lesson plans, like the art of persuasion, the anatomy of a protest, which we see those happening all around the country. And I see y'all in the chat promoting the protest coming up. Also, explore current day applications that can be used by learners of all ages. The lessons that we learned in Selma are what we need to do today, just as they were in 1965, right? They laid that groundwork for us on how to do this work. So maybe you're in you're in a city or a county or a state where you haven't been able to find a lot of organizers or be trained. Use this tool. It's going to be at the website selma101.org, and you'll be able to just log in there, not even log in, you just click on it, and you're able to pick whatever lesson you want to learn that day, right? And this will actually help you get out there in the streets. And when I say, organizing is also a great tool to learn how to do voter registration. And because we still have elections happening and we still need people to go out there and vote. Someone, Carla B in the chat, I'm going to shout you out, Carla B. You wrote ABV, always be voting. These are just a great toolkit for you to use when you do your volunteering with us. And speaking of volunteering, and as we grow and move on, I want to bring up our My School Votes initiative. I'm so excited about this. Everyone in the chat was like, what about the young people? What are we doing about the young people? The young people did show up this year, and they continue to show up as leaders. And this year, we are engaging them in a very intentional way. We have our My School Votes Advisory Fellowship. And unlike other years where we're capping it off at 18, we're asking for folks to be between 18 to 25, because we are trying to get more diverse, younger voices, one, to gain that knowledge, to understand their why, and to really help us fine tune our work here at When We All Vote. So the folks who get to participate, we have about 15 slots open. The deadline is February 28th, and you get $1,000 stipend per person for participating. There are some things you got to do. You got to give us feedback. You got to let us know what we're doing wrong, what we're doing right, while you're engaging with us. And those are all very important things. And I just want to make sure, I think we've posted it in the chat. You'll see Tati and all those folks posting the fellowship. If you don't qualify and you're on this call, then share it with someone else that might qualify. We really want to develop and reach as many people as possible in this moment. And when we talk about moving forward, we're going to give you some action steps, right, on how to move forward. Our next slide. So everyone might not, people might not have an election in everywhere, but that's okay, right? Because you can also still advocate. I saw a lot of you guys posting advocacy tools online, but we really want you to make sure this year you're staying connected. So when we say that, we mean you're getting involved locally, right? Maybe you're attending city council. Maybe you're going to a school board meeting. Maybe you're just having a meeting with your local representative to ask, what do you do? But whatever that is, we want you to stay connected and get involved locally. You're checking your voter registration. I believe we're going to post in the chat to make sure your voter registration is up to date. You got married, you moved, you're in college, you're moving again. Whatever you're doing, please make sure your voter registration is up to date. And you have all the proper identifiers per state, because those voter ID laws are also changing. Also, follow us on social media. All these cool, cute little graphics that you're seeing. And I saw someone say they love the good and bad and ugly email. Thank you guys. Thanks, our comms department. They put a lot of intentional, great work behind that to make sure you are informed, to make sure that you can share this information that is all fact checked with your friends and families and neighbors, because we want everyone on the same page. And if you're new here, join our email list. That's where you're going to get a lot of our information, right? So you're going to find out all the things about, like when our next activation is, when is early vote day, what is I'm in Wisconsin, what's my date and deadline of voting? We're going to make sure we share as much information as possible. And last but not least is take care of yourself. In this moment, you need to make sure you're grounding yourself and you're caring for yourself. Do not overwhelm yourself with social media and the news and bad news. Make sure you're staying in community with folks and give yourself a break and rest, because it's a marathon. It's not a sprint. And we need each and every one of you from now until next year, until the year beyond, in order for us to create the change that we want to see. So I'm going to go on to our next slide, which is recaps of next steps. So, of course, you're going to dig deep. You're going to learn about Selma. So you're going to go to our website, weall.vote/Selma101, which will take you to the Selma website. You'll learn about some basic organizing. You'll see some amazing historical facts and figures. And you also get some great acting, like the movie is good. And then you're going to be able to share what you just learned about our My School Votes Fellowship. We want you to get that out there for those folks who might qualify or who are interested, who are just want to learn more. And that's going to be at weall.vote/fellowship. And then last but not least, you're going to stay connected. But tonight, you're going to stay connected in a very special way. You're going to check your voter registration. So while we're on the call and while you take a moment, check your voter registration and just let us know, like you're registered to vote. You can post it in the chat. I can see it on the side because I have another monitor. I'm doing double duty tonight, y'all. But I can see some of your questions and some of your things, but check your voter registration and make sure you're staying connected. Make sure you're taking care of yourself and you're getting rest. And hopefully we're all building community in this moment. I will open it up for a little bit of questions. I saw some questions around the Voting Rights Act and the State Act. Janai gave you some great tools. You will get this as a recording to answer that. If you're interested in about partnership, we're still doing our Culture of Democracy Collective partnership. So if you have an organization that you would like to get connected and deeper with When We All Vote, that is open. We also are, still trying to get you to engage. Like, we still want you to participate in National Voter Registration Week, right? We still want you to vote early if you have an election on your election day. We don't want this to go away just because this is not a presidential election year. We're ABV and y'all, we're always voting, right? And so there's an election somewhere in your county, right? I'm in Georgia. We just had a special election in my little county. I think we might potentially have another election. Who knows? But I'm going to stay up to date and I'm going to follow When We All Vote on some of that information. I'm going to look quickly in the chat to see if we have any questions. And if not, I just want to make sure I'm thanking everyone for your participation and for your being here. It takes a lot. This is a late night. People are tired. We've got all these great guests, and we hope we gave you a lot of information. It looks like I've answered the majority of the questions. I love that you guys are like connecting with each other and reaching out to each other. We love that. But more than anything, I just want to make sure we're all taking care. And I'm going to wrap us up and say thank you. I appreciate all of you. Stay connected with us. Follow us on social. Sign up for our email list. And we look forward to working with you soon.